Pow Wow, yo, yippee, yay, guys. Power number 27, and I'm super excited to be with you guys today. As not always, we're not going to dive into the community, we're not going to dive into the markets, and not dive into the SwissBorg, but talk about my journey. How did I get to here? As you guys know, it's been now 1 week that we're in Sardinia, which having a great time. Last week was the executive. This time is more about relaxing between those two, celebration of my 40th birthday. And while we had this executive retreat, we talked about our journey. And this is exactly what I'm going to share, because a lot of people said, Cyrus, actually you should share this. And this will probably, hopefully inspire or just some way get to know more myself. So as you guys know, my name is Cyrus Fazil. I'm the proud founder and CEO of SwissBorg, always here to serve you. So, what happened? So 40 years ago, I was born into a noble family that was Persian, so Iranian and Swiss. And essentially what happened through this journey is that as it was a very noble family that had a lot of wealth, we got a great education. But as the revolution happened, my family lost their status, their entire wealth, their financial assets, you know, their lands, and more importantly, their status. And I think so, growing up in the States, then growing up in France, always my quest was how to regain wealth and understand what was wealth and how to get to be wealthy. So growing up, it was quite difficult. Until age of 8, I was living quite a life that was okay and it was like quite good. But then starting 8 years old, and I turned to have a life that was more difficult, living essentially with my brother and my mom in a small apartment, and trying to be really independent right at the bat, right? Trying to be able to be independent at a very early age, which was not always the easiest, but was a great school for learning. So with my brother, we did pretty much everything from selling iced tea in the streets to sell lemonade, then growing up selling t-shirts on the beaches inside of France, working at Burger King, working at Quick. For those who know Quick is like the French McDonald's. It used to be a big thing. Not too sure it still exists, but it used to be a big thing. And really growing up in a way that you had to really take care of yourself financially at the least. And it was always a good way, because, you know, even when I was a kid with the marbles, with the baseball cards, well, anything that I was very good at trading and trying to understand where the value is. Then growing up, going to university, I studied in France, in Nice, at a school. A lot back then was about finance. So I did a lot of different internships. I started in Monte Carlo in real estate, then, you know, went to work for the UNDP as the United Nations, which I didn't like that much. Worked in private equity, and then finally landed a job in wealth management. And the reason I wanted to get into wealth management is that I was not that interested into wealth management, to be very honest with you guys. What I was very interested was to understand how to play the cards, how to build a future. And a lot of people always told me at school or whatsoever, like, why are you doing wealth management? Why are you going to finance? I said, well, because if I do become billionaire, and I will become billionaire, I will then be able to be free myself and to really make sure that the future that I'm looking for, I could build it. Because with a lot of financial assets, that's what it is. And more importantly, what I really thought is that I actually finally could be able to essentially help my family. This was something for me that was extremely important and that I really took care for. So that is chapter 1 and chapter 2, right? First is, how did I grow up? Then chapter 2 is, why did I get into wealth management? Chapter 3 is wealth management. I started at Julius Baer in Geneva, and I had a family in Geneva, and obviously, being Swiss origin for me was a natural thing to come to Geneva. So, because I said, what's the best wealth management school in the world? Well, for me was rather Geneva, Zurich, and then the Singapore that I'll maybe talk about a little bit later. I saw Julius Baer, which was a great school, really people that were not very nice with me, but I really learned this the hard way. And the best of all of it, I came in 27, which was the end of the bubble, and that emerging markets and everything blew up. I was doing my research on emerging markets back then. It was very much crypto-like. Like you just buy anything on on emerging market related, which was the BRICS back then, so Brazil, India, China, and Russia. Forgot the second one. Anything would go to the roof, right? Whatever. No people were looking at value, whatever. It just went to the roof. And then eventually, like a lot of these bubbles, it did blow up. And I think so what I learned there was that markets are completely irrational and people with money are completely irrational. Chapter 4, how to manage money in a smarter way. 2008 happened. I went from Geneva to Singapore because I thought that Singapore was a new emerging market that would, grow wealth and all that. But at the end, I didn't like it as much as I thought. And, 2008, it was still a weird era, to be honest. So I'd spend some time there, spend some time in Dubai and different emerging markets to check around like what I liked. And I really did realize that there was something different of Switzerland, is that there wasn't any crisis. So I went back to Switzerland. I was like, how is that possible that the world is imploding, but Switzerland is not? Switzerland's working quite well. There was some tension with UBS back then. There was some tension with different companies, but it was not doing there was no recession per se. It was not lived in the same way. So I was like, you know what? That probably means that I have a lot to learn. So I went back, chapter 4, to Switzerland, but this time without a job. And I said, everyone thought I was crazy. Like, why would you leave a company without a job and all of that? I was like, well, I left the job, but I was pretty much fired at the same time. I was not feeling the thing anyways. And this was the chapter 4, which was great. The chapter 4 was trying to figure out what I should do. And, I did a lot of different things. I started doing like emergency phone chargers that my brother Alex was based in Tokyo. So I was importing them, doing selling them to a lot of different B2B2C, so different companies. I was trying to do toilets, Japanese toilets. We were as well exporting Hungarian wine, champagne to Japan. A lot of different business of trading, right? Really trading per se. And I was like, well, that's cool, but it looks like it's not gonna make the wealth. It's going to be quite cool, but it's going to take a lot of time. So then I was going to these Chinese factories and said, oh, well, what if I build these different emergency chargers myself and then I sell them? Long story short, a lot of entrepreneurship during that time, but I was like, okay, you know what? I still like this wealth management game, but how can I graduate from the long only classic to something where who are the smartest in the game and probably hasn't lived the same recession? So I looked at 2007, 2008, and I looked at who did perform very well. Back then, there was few hedge funds that underperformed, didn't perform very well. Some of them blew up as well. But there's some hedge funds that did a killing, especially those that did manage futures systematic funds. These are called CTAs, commodity trading advisors. They don't only do commodities, but eventually they do futures on the long and short. And all of that usually is completely automated. And this is when I said, okay, this is exactly what I'm interested in. Human people are irrational managing their wealth. What if you find a bot that essentially creates a trading strategy that's a killing? So I looked at all these different trading firms and some hedge funds, as one I worked for, which called Forts, and I was under the umbrella of Aramis Capital back then, was essentially managing a good amount of wealth, lost a lot of asset under management, but did perform extremely well. I think so it was up 20% and 25% in 2008, where everyone essentially blew up in 2007 or in 2008. So these guys were doing a killing, but lost a lot of business because a lot of their investors, clients essentially blew up, right? So they had to redeem their money. So I started working for this firm for 5 years, and I really enjoyed it, and traveling around Europe and doing fundraising and setting up new funds and trying to establish a really parent business. I really did enjoy it, and it was really good, being between the US market and the European market. I really liked it. But then I said, okay, this is cool, but how do I get to the next step? Joined Sequoia Asset Management, which was great. Wanted to set up a multi-strategy hedge fund. And things were looking okay, but not great. And after, a year and a half, things that didn't look as good as I thought. Eventually, a competitor of them really wanted to hire me. I really didn't want to. I was like, okay, this financial thing is a zero-sum game. We're not building up anything. Just trading. One is winning, other one is losing. I'm not making a lot. So I was like, you know what? I need a break. And I think so this is what I really, really recommend to anyone is take a break in life sometimes. And during that break, really think your process. Think what's the next step. Think how the future you could take part of it and you can influence it. So I said, you know what? I need to take a 5 months break. It was amazing. Traveled around Asia, a little bit everywhere, from India, Thailand, Malaysia, to Japan, of course, and other places. And I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a great time. And the sad story is that I went back to another job, another hedge fund, systematic hedge fund. But long story short, when I got back to my job, I was like, okay, what am I doing? I was doing the same thing again, a highly paid job, not the best boutique in the world, but, and the performance, anyway, I didn't think that this was the right job for me. So after a few months, I realized that this was not going to go through it. I just said like, okay, it's just not going to work. And this is when I realized that my next big step was to be an entrepreneur. Was actually me to create something with technology and a community, and that not as a zero-sum game, and something that we could build and could change the status quo. And this is, it took a lot of time back into 2012 with, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014. A lot of years with Anthony, we were on vacation, we're in different places, and we were always thinking, how can we change finance forever? And, we went through multiple different business models. And again, after in 2016, went through different business models, and, he was like, okay, I'm trying to do my, banking online. I was trying to do something else, which was already SwissBorg, but was a B2B2C robo-advisor. So again, based on these different algorithms, how can you create like an investment mandate that is tailor-made, but with stocks and commodities and different things? But it was impossible. The technology that was back then of Web 2, you weren't able to interact directly with people. It would be just impossible to build these systems. And the beautiful moment happened when I was lucky enough that my dad's 70th birthday was there, and I really wanted to give him something. So I talked to my cousin and I said, okay, how can I really get him a present? And he's like, well, you could send me Bitcoin and I'll buy him something. And I was like, you know what Bitcoin's about, Ali? I said, yeah, of course. Yeah, it was Bitcoin for sure. And I'm like, he says, do you have some Bitcoin stars? I said, well, I had some, but I never really used them. It was just more like a financial speculative tool. And this is the time where I realized how Napster has changed my education, changed my music, movies, and Emule, and eDonkey, and Kaza, and all these different peer-to-peer websites have changed my lifetime of everything. So this is now going to probably be a same instrument where now I'm not going to be able to download and upload different files and share them together. I'm able to share essentially tangible money to anyone, even if they're based in Iran. So this was my first aha moment of saying like, oh my God, this Bitcoin thing is actually really good. So I sent him the Bitcoin. He cashed them out, buys a very nice bottle of whiskey for my dad in Iran. And my dad just says, thank you very much, Cyrus. This is amazing. And from that, I got back to with Anthony, and he was like, oh, what are you up to and all that. And, he comes now to Switzerland, and I'm like, oh, stay with me for some time. Let's figure out, let's do some sleepless nights where we're going to think about how to change the world. And he was more and more into crypto himself because he did a lot of FX and a lot of different instruments. And thanks to Andrew, which is one of our amazing head of operations at SwissBorg, he was really into crypto. So Anthony started talking more about crypto, all of that. And I was like, well, yeah, I think so. It's a great asset. It's a great tool. And he's like, no, but Cyrus, the thing we didn't call it Web3 back then, but he was trying to explain what Ethereum was going to help us to create this platform where then we'll be able to create different decentralized applications. So this is now late 2016. Things are growing, and I'm like talking to other different people that are based in Zug, a lot of cool people, and these different crypto valley, different meetups. We're going to these and theirs, and we met Melonport, Mona Lisa, if you're watching, by the way, hey, I hope you're well. And she was already the queen of DeFi. She was back then, it was crazy how, you know, this wonderful lady that from Goldman Sachs to Jab on different hedge funds had a very similar background, but she was understanding how to create eventually decentralized funds where people will be able to manage. And this is when I thought, okay, this Ethereum thing, Anthony's completely right. This is just insane. Then 2017 happens. I'm like, Anthony, we need to do that. He's like, let's do it full on. If you believe in crypto, I will 100% devote my time and we will build SwissBorg together. Because back then he was still working for another project. And I'm like, okay, this is very good music to my ears. I'm liking it more and more. 2017 happens. TAS, T-A-A-S, token as a service, essentially launches their ICO. We participate in it. They really inspired us because they did an ICO, which was amazing. And I'm like, Anthony, this is it. Let's do an ICO. And this is when the moment we realized that DeFi was going to grow, and then Web3 was going to grow, and all this hope about how essentially, you know, SwissBorg itself, but more importantly, Web3 was going to enable us to reorganize ourselves, to finally give back power and data to the users, how to really embrace, you know, technology for people, made by the community for the community. And this is when all this, you know, hope came to us, and all this way of saying we can't turn back anymore. It's like, there's no way. This is not only the future, this is something that's going to change forever the landscape of how we are connected, how we're interchanged, how value is perceived, how value is transferred, how value is some way staked, and how the value is passed on. A few months later, met Stani and the rest of the team from ETH Land that we're talking about building, essentially launching already their own staking platform, and you could lending with collateral and all of that. I was like, wow, this is way more advanced than I ever thought, and meeting more and more amazing projects. Finally, we did the ICO, which was a really rough part, and hopefully I'll have more time next time to talk about the next part, which is the ICO, and probably hopefully build more chapters from here. What can I say? I always think that the most important in life is always to, you know, remind yourself where you come from, and then what happened to yourself in order to understand where you're going. And I think so. A lot of battles I've had in my life really created, you know, a way to have persistence, resistance, but more importantly, love that I have for you guys, for the community, that vacation or not, I have to do this. You know, until the last moment, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do it, but I had to, because I don't know, I think so I owe it to you guys. So hopefully we'll have more chapters for the next time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, be wealthy, be healthy, love our CHSB and our equity. Take care, guys.
Through SwissBorg, all assets will have a fiat gateway. And here is the thing.
Premium features gives you zero fee trading.
It's an amazing fiat gateway.